I certainly had no idea about this before I started working on this. In Canada, we think of ourselves as this incredibly advanced economy, highly regulated, the envy of the world, and not a place where shady business people from around the world come to dump their money and set up fictional companies and don't list their names and create nominee directors that are all completely bogus. This is not the country that we think of for this kind of activity, and yet one of the real insights from the Panama Papers is, in fact, around the world, they do see us that way. And increasingly, the Maple Leaf is emblazoned on all these websites as a place to set up unique tax structures where they can do the same kinds of things they do in the British Virgin Islands or in Panama or in Jersey.
Everyone trusts Canadian companies, and so they're the perfect vehicle for trying to hide money. Canada has all these tax treaties and tax agreements with other countries. In fact, we have 115 of them, more than any other country in the world. And what this does is it makes it extremely easy to move money in and out of Canada without declaring it or paying taxes. We had a company that was being used to hide money from Peruvian tax authorities. And this company was based in Montreal and had a director that was what we know as a straw man director, or a nominee director. And it's just someone who's paid to put their name on the company. We thought we'd go pay this guy a visit and ask him, how do you wind up putting your name on a Peruvian company based in Quebec? So we drove out to his house on the edge of Montreal, and it was abandoned. I'm asking myself at that point, if I was a police officer trying to investigate fraud, if I was a tax auditor trying to find out where the money trail leads, this is where I would end up. And it is the proverbial dead end.
So it's all part of this sort of shroud of secrecy. It's a maze, it's a series of dead ends that seem to lead nowhere. And so we started looking at what other countries are doing.
FNX Group.
FNX Group, yeah. Is that here?
Yeah, what it is, we're a mailing address for them.
Oh, you're just a mailing address for them.
Okay. They've got an office here.
They don't have an office here?
No.
What's increasingly true is that these issues of tax evasion and avoidance and money laundering and terrorism financing, this is now prime time. Governments are worried about this. And so they're taking very vigorous steps, very meaningful steps, in order to attack the number one tool that tax evaders and avoiders use, which is secrecy. So if you take that away, you're removing the most powerful tool. And countries are figuring out ways to do this. What's increasingly obvious to us is that it's not happening here. The Liberal government has certainly talked about trying to stamp out tax evasion and avoidance, but we're not doing the kinds of things that European countries predominantly are taking the lead on. And increasingly what the experts are saying is if we don't do these things, if we get left behind, then we become that jurisdiction that the tax avoiders and evaders are going to turn to.
I couldn't believe that Canada has not instituted a more transparent regulation around bank accounts and corporations and private trusts and limited partnerships. These are the kinds of things that people use to launder money, and if we don't know who's behind them, then we're just inviting people to launder money here.
The great hope for this series is to raise this issue, which I think most Canadians have no idea about, and to try and spur the kind of public debate that can lead to some meaningful change. So the hope is, of course, that we ask meaningful questions to those in political power and try and seek some meaningful answers as to what they plan to do about this.